Welcome back to your live continuing coverage of InfoComm 2015 on BeTerrific. This is the Digital Signage Pavilion. We're on the Digital Signage stage. Thank you so much for joining us. You're the Terrifics. You're in our Slack chat. If you're not in there already, join. All you have to do is go to BeTerrific.com/Slack, enter your name and email. We'll send you an invite, and you can converse with us and the other Terrifics in real time. So it's really awesome. You guys make this special, and I'm excited. We've got a very, very special guest. Last night he was bestowed a very prestigious honor and award, a Lifetime Achievement Award from InfoComm, rightfully so. He's a pioneer in the digital signage industry, and of course, he's a visionary. This man, I'd like to call a good friend. His name is Brawn. And Alan, I mean, you've set so many standards. You helped put so much education together, and you've done so much for the industry. Not only, I mean, you were there from the beginning, but it wasn't only about making money from day one. It was always about spreading the gospel, spreading the wealth, educating people, and helping people understand the industry and where it's going. You teach, you lecture, you talk, and you have Brawn Consulting, which is an amazing company as well that people hire to integrate their digital signage solutions.
Absolutely. Well, from an education point of view, being an ex-college professor, I kind of have it in my soul and spirit. My mom was a teacher, and so you grow up with what you grow up with from from a familial and an environmental perspective. But I've always believed that knowledge is strength, and I think that if we can impart knowledge, that's going to give us a strength. It's going to give us literally a reservoir of things that we can work from. It's funny, we were doing we got a really nice award last night, and I was humbled to get the award.
Congratulations, I kind of skipped through that part, and I congratulated you yesterday, but congratulations officially.
I appreciate it. But the funny part of it is, there's actually a good story that goes along with this relative to education. So when I got into the audiovisual industry almost 35 years ago, I didn't even know what the words AV stood for. And I'm not being self-deprecating, I'm serious. I really didn't know, Michael, I didn't. So anyway, I'm sitting here and I'm general manager of a really well-known regional audiovisual integration company, and the guy hired me because he thought I had good management skills. He didn't hire me for my AV knowledge. So I knew nothing. So my salespeople were very knowledgeable, and I had all of these wonderful people like the companies that are represented in this show. They would come and call on our company and work with my salespeople, and I knew nothing. So I figured out pretty soon that I had to learn something. So I took a bartending course, and I learned how to make drinks, and I had my cabinet shop make me a bar and make me a great big desk, true story, make me a great big desk. And so what I would do is I would take the independent reps and the factory reps representing some of these companies that are still here today, like Barco and Panasonic and Stewart Film Screen. So I would take them to dinner on my nickel as a dealer, and then afterwards I'd take them back to my office, and I had these big overstuffed easy chairs, and I'd sit them down and I would make them a drink, and I would say, what is this? And they would say, well, that's a BNC connector, or that's a video projector, or whatever. And I'd say, well, explain that to me. And they said, are you serious? And I said, yes, I'm serious.
Yes, I'm serious, have another drink.
Yes.
So you forget this conversation tomorrow.
Absolutely. So we did not have what we have today. We would not be sitting here. There were no flat panels.
Right.
There were no video conference systems. There was nothing. So we literally started in the early 1980s with this issue of developing a learning base, because it's not about the product, it's about what you can do with the product and how you utilize it in a system. And my passion all of these years, and continues to this day, to be, it's the old parable, if you're hungry, I can feed you some fish today, or I can teach you how to fish and feed you for a lifetime. And that's the genesis of the educational spirit that I have.
I remember all that old equipment, those Barco monitors. There was a company called Delco, right? And,
yes.
And those Pioneer rear projectors that were huge.
Oh yes.
And you'd make a video wall out of them, do all sorts of crazy stuff. It was insane, and it took up, like, you had to have so much room. I mean, the room had to be so big so you could literally take up a quarter of the room with all this equipment.
Well, there were no flat panels back in the day.
Yeah.
We didn't see the first flat panel until Fujitsu came out with it about '92, and even then, a 42-inch flat panel was like $45,000 in 1992 dollars, right? So we had to live with those great, big, deep, huge cabinets, and look at the monitor on the set, and go out and see the inch-thick 80-inch displays that we've got here. paraphrasing Virginia Slims, the old cigarette ad, we've come a long way, baby, in a relatively short period of time.
Yes, it's really remarkable. It's pretty unbelievable. So what made you want to get into the digital signage space, especially back then? Were you just that much of a visionary?
No, I wish I could claim that. I'm the kind of guy that once some really smart guy like a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs or something really is a true visionary and they come up with an idea, I'm the person they call to make the idea work for them. The truth of it is, I got into digital signage almost by accident. I was running the commercial display group at Samsung at the time before digital signage was, they called it digital retailing in the early days. And I was asked to do a keynote address because we were just getting into flat panels. We had plasma back then. And I fell in love with the digital signage industry. And I fell in love with it from this perspective. In the early days, digital signage was all about the ad-based system. Let's advertise, let's have zones on a screen and all of this. Well, I grew up doing boardrooms, conference rooms, training rooms, this sort of thing in the traditional audiovisual industry. But where the visionary, and I'll give myself only this much credit, was where we took a look at this and I said, you know, this is much more than an ad-based medium. The last 5 or 6 projects that we have done at Brawn Consulting have been employee-facing mediums. So we're now taking the information to where the people are as you walk past an elevator, as you're in an escalator, as you're outside a conference room, if you're in a common area. So when I grew up in the industry, we literally segregated and aggregated in a boardroom or a conference room or a training room. Now digital signage has freed us up even down to cell phones, and you and I were talking before we started the interview, we're talking about smartwatches. We now have taken it on our wrist, touch screens on our phones, in a taxi cab. Oh, a friend of mine, you're going to love this one, a friend of mine said to me, says, have you been to the MGM Grand lately? And I said, yeah. I said, well, have you been down to one of the restaurants? I said, yeah. I said, have you been to the men's room? And I said, what? He says, have you been to the men's room? And I said, oh my goodness, yes. You go into the men's room and there when you're washing your hands is a digital sign at the hand washing area.
That's amazing.
It is, you cannot get away from, the Wall Street Journal did an article and they said that over 68% of the population of the United States is confronted with digital signage every single day. And check this one. The New York Times wrote an article and they claim that we spend 8 hours a day in front of a screen of one type. Could be your GPS, could be your tablet, could be your laptop, could be digital signage. 8 hours a day in front of a screen. Michael, we are a display world today.
That is for sure, without a doubt, and it's impressive, those numbers. The men's room thing impresses me. I think there's so much digital signage we don't even necessarily know it all the time when we run up against it because, and that's good, that's a good thing.
Right.
That's the point, that we're not like, oh, that's digital signage, that's digital signage. When you go to Vegas, it's most apparent. I will tell you, the ESPN zone had done that in the men's room years ago, and I loved it because I could go into the men's room and continue to watch the game. And then come out, you know, I didn't interrupt the game, but they also wrapped it with digital signage and hey, your next drink is this and that thing and all that, or why not try this? So I think it's really interesting as these companies do that and put it literally everywhere. You talk about the watches, and I think that a lot of the technology, as Richard Ventura said before, will go to interactivity, especially with NFC and RFID tags and all sorts of other things, especially with the beacons and the Bluetooth and all this stuff. Where do you see, though, you're a pioneer, you're a visionary, where do you see the industry headed in the future?
Well, I was listening to one of your previous interviews and you were talking about your child and how your child now goes up to a television and they actually reach out to touch it. Well, first of all, we are becoming ever increasingly a totally interactive world. Jonathan, my partner and parenthetically my son, just got himself one of those Microsoft...
the Oculus?
No, the little laptop, the combination laptop.
Oh, sure, like the yoga, like the like the ThinkPad, a Lenovo ThinkPad yoga laptop.
It's a combination tablet, and it's got a keyboard, and it's the coolest thing. And it's all based around touch technology. Windows 10, thank goodness Windows 8 isn't going to be around much longer. So Windows 10,
you said it, not me.
I did.
They're right over there if you want to tell them, by the way.
And I have told them, thank you. Windows 10 evidently is miraculous, which I'm looking forward to getting Windows 10, but everything is turning into being based around touch technology. It doesn't matter whether it's your smartwatch, whether it's your cell phone. So interactivity is absolutely it. But another thing, another area that we're getting into, and I saw it over, it's interesting, I saw it over in the Canon booth as I was coming for our interview, and they had 3 projectors on the floor, and they had suspended from the ceiling this cube kind of at an angle, and it was spinning, and the projectors were projecting images up on the cube. And I walked by, and it's a very inexpensive, this is not one of those direct view LED things, and it isn't even as expensive as a flat panel display. And about 20–25% of digital signage, by the way, is projection, just for the record. So I walked by and I thought about this, and I stopped and I looked at it and I said, wow, it's going to be what we call techerating. It's going to be using digital signage technologies in the actual interior design. And I'm not talking about putting a panel on a wall, I'm talking about building it into the environment so it becomes a living, breathing part of your environment that you live in, and it becomes transparent. It becomes a part of your daily life. And so whether it's NFC, or whether it's other cell phones, whether it's social media, the next big phase is becoming a transparent part of your life.
I love that idea. We actually, several years ago, created a video of birds flying so that it could be projected. An architect had this idea. So it could be projected on the ceiling of a place, and they painted the ceiling like the sky, and then the birds flew around the sky. It was very cool, and it's really technically it's digital signage, and you can work this in. It's pretty cool. Now, you're into watches, I know. Do you have a favorite watch?
Well,
I mean, it might be something that you don't have.
Well, I've got a favorite watch that I'll never be able to afford. A gentleman by the name of Richard Mille makes these incredible mechanical watches with like 3 and 4 tourbillons in one watch, and you look at the watch and it's $500,000, and for those of us in the AV and digital signage industry, chances are we're not going to be able to afford a $500,000 watch or a Ferrari F40, but those unobtainium timepieces, they do something, actually create a positive force and a function in your life. Those things that are what we call unobtainium give us something to reach for, something to strive for, and even if we can just buy a watch that has a little bit of the look of a Richard Mille, or a little bit of so I can't afford a Ferrari, but I can afford a Camaro with a big block Chevy motor, I can get pretty doggone close to it. So these grail things, you're a watch guy, we call them the grail timepieces. They give us something to yearn for and to ascribe to, and it's fun, and it creates interest in life. It's not just about this and that and the other thing, the mundane. There have to be things that breed excitement, and they do.
Absolutely, and if you want to check out what Alan's talking about, you can just get a copy of DuPont Registry.
Absolutely.
Or the Rob Report is another.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful timepieces you're talking about, absolutely, and you can see a lot of those watches. You can see the movements in,
absolutely,
because he keeps them clear, so you can see the movements, which are amazing. I hear you're a car guy too, I guess, because you just made
absolutely.
a Ferrari and a Camaro reference in the same sentence.
Well, not being a wealthy guy, I had to work my way through college and high school, so I lied about my age in high school, and I told them I was 16 when I was 14, and I went to work at a drag strip in the Midwest, and I became the stock car classification manager of a drag strip for 9 years, and worked my way through the rest of high school, college, and grad school, and then had a car repair shop to to feed the family while I was going to grad school and beyond. So, and being my age, I turned 70 this year. Being my age, you almost have to be a car guy. You almost have to be a car guy, and so yeah. And cars, it's interesting. Cars, watches, and even digital signage are kind of metaphors for things that you ascribe to. A car, a watch, techerating in digital signage. I have a friend of mine who's was the past chairman of the Digital Signage Federation, Kim Sarubi, and she coined the phrase, think outside the rectangle. So as you go around the show, for anybody hearing this interview, I would highly recommend that you think outside the rectangle. Don't just look at a flat panel display for a flat panel display. Don't just look at a projector as a projector. Think of other ways that you can use technology in interesting and unique ways, because what's going to happen is it's all done for a viewer. And what you're trying to do is to mesmerize that viewer. And we become very blasé if you just see a flat panel display or just see a monitor, even a video wall. Take a look at some of the creative video walls, whether it's a Samsung or an NEC or a Sharp or whoever it might be. Take a look at some of the creative video wall designs in terms of doing things on a bias. So whatever it is in your life, think about something that's different, that's at a different level of perfection than what it is obviously to you today, and reach for that. That's the secret in where we're going in the audiovisual and digital signage industry.
I think it's really good advice. I think I like that a lot. I think talking about having people think differently and spin the Rubik's Cube and say, oh, you could decorate with this technology, you could do this with this technology. What else can you do with this technology is great. BeTerrific Poon in our Slack chat wanted to know what you thought of virtual reality, VR, these new Oculus Rift and other kinds of virtual reality headsets, and where you think that will go and how it could or could not play into digital signage.
Well, virtual reality and kind of a dotted line point to holographic images and things like that, that's again thinking outside the box. What you're going to do, or outside the rectangle as Kim Cerubi would say, what you're going to do is you're going to find other ways to see things and look at things in a slightly different manner. And if you're used to seeing things in a certain way, then it becomes mundane, it becomes usual. And creativity only happens when you take something that might ordinarily be mundane. Let's take a hamburger and let's stuff it with blue cheese and let's put a portobello mushroom on it, and you can tell that we didn't have lunch. And so you do this sort of thing and you make a mundane hamburger into something that is just outstanding. And so what we take a look at when we're looking at virtual reality, we're looking at things like holographic images, we're changing the experience using some mundane everyday elements and expanding them beyond kind of common everyday use. And that gives you a new perspective, and it can be entertaining, it can be informational, etc. Again, we're trying to take things that you are used to and looking at them in a slightly different way.
The best use or deployment you've ever seen of digital signage is?
For me, and this is my prejudice, so I'll have to deal with my prejudice, are the employee-facing networks. You would think it would be the creative ad-based networks, and we've seen some wonderful, wonderful things that, like the Bass Pro Shops and PepsiCo World Headquarters, things like that. It's wonderful. But what the best I've seen is when an employee-facing network, like for example a Southwest Airlines that we were fortunate enough to work on, Southwest Airlines, where they've got 17 different departments inside Southwest Airlines, and they've got digital signage deployed in each one, and the CMS and the content is oriented to each separate department, and it's refreshed on a minute-by-minute basis, and wow, is that a powerful medium to disseminate information where the employee is.
Well, and it shows they care about their employees.
Yes.
It's really phenomenal. That's not easy to do.
Nope.
Content management systems can be complicated and hard, but they've got it figured out. What impresses you? What does it take to impress you?
User friendliness.
Yeah.
There's a very famous book.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because I saw some guys at a conference and I tried to get them here, and it was all. They couldn't understand why I was getting so excited about their product, and it was a digital signage product. And it was all about the user friendliness. And they were like, so what's so exciting about this? You know, it's digital signage. And I'm like, it's the most user-friendly digital signage I've ever seen in my life. And they were like, really? It doesn't all work like this?
Well, like, the funny part is there are about 600 CMS vendors, and that's not a joke, by the way. There are about 600 CMS vendors. All CMS, content management systems, all CMSs do similar things. They distribute content, they manage content, they do day parting. That's where you put your content to reside, to distribute. All of them do very similar things. What they do is those similar things in a very different manner. And the things that are most impressive to me are people that do these complex tasks, and yet when it gets down to the people who are operating the systems, they do those complex tasks in a very, very user-friendly manner. Not to overuse the term, but that's what it's all about. There's a book that I would suggest to our audience, and it's on web design, and it's called Don't Make Me Think. And it's about web design, and you think, well, our audience would say, well, I don't do any web design. Well, I don't do any web design either. But Don't Make Me Think is a book that says, if you make somebody think and do more than 1 or 2 clicks to get to a place on a website, you are going to lose your audience. So I use that as a metaphor for training. I use that as a metaphor for digital signage, and I simply say to people, when you're designing whatever you're designing, consider the person that's going to operate it and consider the person that's going to view it. Those are the 2 most important people in the equation, the viewer number 1 and the operator number 2. And I'm not going to be able to well serve that viewer in terms of refresh of material and all of that if the operator is not, it does not have a facility, does not feel a comfort with their CMS program. So my favorite CMS programs, and it's interesting, they're different ones for different applications. That's what's exciting about our business. There is no one size fits all. There is no one CMS that works for everybody. That's the excitement that we have. And I guess the crowning comment of all digital signage is every morning at this stage of my life, every morning when I wake up, I learn something new and I've got a new challenge to overcome and help people learn about this wonderful industry we call digital signage.
It's really awesome. The last question, and I think that's really important what you said, by the way, and I think it's it seems so easy, right, but it's not to achieve. And I like that. I'm glad that it takes something really special to impress you, and it's like, again, it seems so easy, but if we can make it work, then you're golden. My last question to you is your advice to young guys getting into the business, young gals getting into the business, on any facet of it. What would be your advice?
Very simply, I'm going to go back to knowledge is strength. I would strongly urge people to, if you can take a certification like the Digital Signage Certified Experts Program, which is an online program. There are about 18,000 people in 64 countries that have taken that. If you can do that, yeah, it takes a day of your time, but you can stop and start and all of that. I would recommend that if you can do it. If you can't, not a problem. There are enough really good courses and enough really good information. Study them, look at the periodicals, look at Digital Signage Magazine, look at Digital Signage Today, look at the Digital Signage Federation. Go do a Google search and have your Google automatically send you all of the news releases every single day on digital signage, and study, 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 and then you apply that to your daily tasks and you're going to be fine.
That's great advice. Thank you very much.
Thank
the
you.
Legendary Alan Brawn. Congratulations again on your Lifetime Achievement Award last night. I'm honored and humbled to have you on the stage and have gotten a chance to interview you. You look great. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
That is Alan Brawn, Brawn Consulting, brawnconsulting.com. You got to check them out. We're going to have his son John on tomorrow or Friday. I can't remember which, but he's going to share a lot more great information with us, and it'll be a lot of fun. You are the Terrifics, and you're watching BeTerrific. Thank you so much for watching, because you make BeTerrific special. We're going to take a break from the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida, from InfoComm, and we'll be back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.